Who just absolutely blasted CM Punk, and why is it the last person you'd ever expect? In today's video, we're diving into a fresh wave of controversies surrounding the best in the world. We'll unpack who just threw shade at Punk, why their criticism might be misplaced, and why I think they're completely off the mark. By the end of this video, you'll probably agree with me, because love him or hate him, CM Punk is impossible to ignore. Since returning to WWE in late 2023, Punk's re-entry into the wrestling world has been nothing short of explosive. He's reignited past rivalries, started new ones, and become the subject of endless debate online and backstage alike. Typically, when people criticize Punk, it's expected names, guys like Seth Rollins or Roman Reigns. Their dislike for Punk has been public and well documented, and I get that. Rollins, in particular, has gone on record calling Punk a cancer and warning him to stay away from WWE even before Punk's AEW departure. But this time, the criticism didn't come from someone we expected. It wasn't another big-name rival or someone Punk's worked closely with. Instead, it came out of left field, from a name with virtually no direct connection to Punk. And what this person said cuts surprisingly deep, not just because of what was said, but because of how casually it was delivered, as if it were some universally accepted truth. That name is Matt Riddle. Yes, Matt Riddle, the same guy who's been making headlines for controversy after controversy, the same guy who was released by WWE following a string of backstage and personal issues, and the same guy who's now trying to keep his name in the headlines while working on the independent circuit and making appearances in MLW. Riddle recently appeared on the YouTube channel Going Ringside. In one of his interviews, he was asked about the drama surrounding CM Punk and AEW, and his response immediately got people talking. He said, and I quote, "Not a big fan of that guy either. That guy sucks at fighting, and he's one to work with in the back because he just bellyaches and complains. This guy complains about getting multiple world title runs. I've heard from my boys that still work there, in WWE, that he's a headache. And this isn't a storyline, this is facts." Now let's break that down. First of all, let's acknowledge the obvious. Matt Riddle is a former MMA fighter. He's been in the UFC. He knows the fight game better than most wrestlers ever will. So yes, from a pure combat sports standpoint, he's right. CM Punk wasn't cut out for the UFC. Punk lost both of his fights in convincing fashion and didn't exactly set the MMA world on fire. But here's the thing, Punk stepped into that octagon twice, under the UFC banner, in front of the entire world. He didn't hide, he didn't take a shortcut, he took the hard road and failed publicly, and that takes guts, plain and simple. Not everyone has to be the best to earn respect. Sometimes, the willingness to step into the fire is enough. Now let's move on to Riddle's other claims. He says Punk complains too much. He says he's difficult to work with backstage, and maybe there's some truth to that. I'm not going to sit here and claim Punk is a saint. He's famously hard-headed. He speaks his mind, even when it's not politically correct. And yes, that's led to conflicts, big ones. We've all heard the stories from AEW, the fights with talent, the frustration with management, the infamous brawl involving Jack Perry and the fallout that ultimately led to Punk being fired. But here's what Riddle misses, and it's something a lot of people miss. CM Punk comes from a different generation of wrestling, a generation that saw wrestling not just as a performance but as a craft and a business. He idolized guys like Terry Funk, Harley Race, Bret Hart, guys who didn't just care about their matches, they cared about the company, the locker room, the storytelling, the legacy. Punk isn't wired to just show up, hit a few moves, and collect a paycheck. He wants the product to matter. He wants the business to be taken seriously. That kind of mindset doesn't always mesh well with the modern wrestling environment, especially when you've got talent who don't share that same fire. Riddle says he heard from his boys in WWE that Punk is a headache. Okay, let's talk about that. Backstage reports and wrestler opinions can be tricky. One person's headache is another person's passionate leader. Just because 2 or 3 people feel a certain way doesn't mean the whole locker room does. In journalism, when credible reporters release backstage info, they talk to dozens of sources. They get a consensus. They don't run with gossip. Riddle isn't a reporter. He's a fired wrestler trying to stir the pot and stay relevant. He doesn't speak for the WWE locker room. And let's be honest, Matt Riddle has his own baggage. Riddle has been involved in multiple controversies, legal issues, personal drama, attitude problems backstage. WWE eventually had enough and cut ties with him. despite his in-ring ability and fan following. And since then, he hasn't exactly landed on his feet in a major promotion. That says something. In wrestling, if you've got the talent but can't be trusted, your opportunities dry up fast. So when Riddle calls someone else a headache, it might be time to look in the mirror. Punk's not perfect, but there's a difference between being difficult and being passionate. Punk fights for what he believes in. Sometimes that ruffles feathers. Sometimes that means calling out bad creative, challenging management, or taking a stand for what he thinks is best for the business. But the truth is, he's doing it because he cares. AEW didn't know how to handle that. Tony Khan let the locker room spiral out of control, and Punk, being the old school guy he is, wanted someone to take charge, someone to lay down the law. He wasn't trying to be difficult for the sake of it. He was trying to instill a sense of order and respect in a chaotic environment. People forget that wrestling is a business. It's entertainment, yes. It's scripted, yes. But it's also a business, a billion-dollar business. And when you treat it like a joke, when you undermine the product, when you prioritize personal beefs over company success, you're hurting the whole industry. That's what Punk was fighting against, and that's why he's still here. In fact, Punk's return to WWE in November 2023 marked a full-circle moment. He walked back into the company he once walked out of, not with a chip on his shoulder, but with a purpose. Since then, he's feuded with top stars, helped elevate new talent, and proven he still belongs on the biggest stage. His matches have been solid, his promos have been must-watch, and his presence has added a much-needed spark to WWE's product. Meanwhile, Riddle is doing podcasts. Look, I don't want to turn this into a full-on burial of Matt Riddle. He's a talented guy, he has potential, but when he takes cheap shots at someone like CM Punk, someone who's done more for wrestling than Riddle ever has, it just doesn't land. It comes off as petty, uninformed, and self-serving. CM Punk isn't without flaws. He's had his moments of ego, stubbornness, and missteps, but at the end of the day, he's a wrestler who loves wrestling. He's a guy who wants to push the industry forward, even if it means stepping on a few toes. And that's something we should respect, not ridicule. So when Riddle says Punk complains too much, maybe he's right, but maybe Punk complains because he sees a problem and wants it fixed. Maybe he's not content with mediocrity. Maybe he still believes that wrestling can be better than it is right now. And maybe, just maybe, that makes him the most important voice in the room. Let me know in the comments what you think about Matt Riddle's comments. Do you agree with his take on CM Punk? Or do you think he's just trying to stay relevant? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. We've got more wrestling content coming your way, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's next.